Lama dan jambe yangla gyube chaza lu. Kashi chanju shiwan chundo dude bunje sadan kala gyunkyab chin. Dorje dondon dane kolo medan ridan kari chenwe chabe pam. Zudula nambra chuje dode mendo daji chanju doje zemba. Chambe tuge lebra pamze zobe sange ganye tela geja ca kege shenge tenle do samdan jorwa penzo chanjo tambara tuge ze saya nambara judo jedan tsujime leju shin sedan zinji gombara samde sherwa tarjembe parlo chinzo kecha 조개 담보 담보나 지된 개발아 담제 되나마 신도 도바에게 무대 제바 다다 텔레 크게 담보네 니베 외신 젤레 담보 근도 밀로 왜 잘라 켜라 다겨 크게 소라 생게 자 탈제 지된 잡아 Candan Kyabjo Gubara Guru Laye Lama Vadaraj Toba Game Droga Ada Chanson Geba Nechos Chaba Toba Deda Gin Chige Pamze Kyolat Kege Chanjo Chonye Ne Drove Tenze Motsaraj Sebe Sele Madro Wa Kuso Dame Babu 이게 구수 메세 바케라 펜바라 차고시 그메 다자 제송 왕공보 케라 다캬 게베 데데 도와 다 모데 마베 밤제 예데 로마 참메 조 가세 담바 론데 대제 레조 통와 남케게 연데 되니레 Chanjo ledo juba da laryan kela da gyabs. Kege sene jambe yang loma shara da de. Chamba gyaza dambara ze semshen sushi te zoms. Kege yende meje ca sege yende tongwe. Gyaren sharbe siji ge beme ninge vese. Cheda wadan chinye che kege namba gunye shebe chinle tenshin do druba kela da chat tedara drove lama shageri purama shimbe dongye lechon chomden zobe sangye tebay drove gunge nyurdo tobara sho Lama gombo jeze jambe yang gube chata no kange leje jimye jinja nida namda rapsabe chinye denge chishin sije nige tugara lepam kanda sibe jadara mabe menduma dongmana gise Zhōzō kūnlā pūjē dārzē yānlā chūjē yāndēs. Chūdara chēzhō nyamō nīlō lēgē chāzhō zhōzē chīng. Mārē mēsē dōngwālā nyūgō shīnyē chēzē rājē nām. Tēnē dāchē sāchē tāsē yāndē lēzō gyāsē tūgō. Chūdā chūdān chūnyē gāndē dālō mēsē chāmbē yānlā Zenden kege kerava vesrege dalı dimo nemba rapsa. Kadan tenji shunlo dobay leje bobe nawa zadu so. So greetings to everyone. I hope you are all doing well. And so today we will be continuing from where we left off last time. Which is the beginning, I believe, of speaking of the practices of the Bodhisattva, of Bodhicitta in great detail. So we have earlier completed the one in short detail a medium detail, and so today we will be speaking about the great detail.
大家吉祥如意，希望大家一切都好。我们今天继续我们上一次讲的愿菩提心的广义的学处。
So to speak of that, there's 3 topics: the causes for the Chitta, the mind of enlightenment, to be born, and then there's the conditions for it to increase, and then the methods for it to not decline. So among those 3, we have completed the first one, which is identifying the causes for the generation or the birth of the mind of enlightenment, which we identified it as being the compassion, and then the cause. So the cause of the mind of enlightenment is compassion, and the cause of compassion itself is loving kindness. So we have already mentioned that earlier in our previous class.
愿菩提心的这个广义的学处也分3个，第一个就是升起菩提心的因，第2个部分是增长菩提心的缘，最后一个是菩提心不退失的方法。我们之前一节课已经讲了升起菩提心的因，也就是升起菩提心的因，也就是有大悲心，而大悲心升起的因也是由于慈心。
So if you remember, there's the short detail, the medium detail, the great detail. The short detail is very simple. It's just basically to not give up the thought of enlightenment. So that is the detail, the practice in short that the Bodhisattva needs to do once they have the mind of enlightenment.
如果我们记得的话，这个之前我们讲过，愿菩提心有分了3种不同的学处来讲解，一个是简单的学处，一个是中等的学处，现在讲的是广义的学处。之前讲了是不舍弃愿菩提心的广义的学处里面，也就是一旦升起了菩提心之后，就努力不舍弃菩提心。
So the training in short detail is basically just to simply continue to hold on to the thought of attaining enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings.
作为简单的学处来说，就是为了度化一切众生，而我们继续升起菩提心，不舍弃菩提心。
And then for the training in medium detail, if, as you might remember, there was we identified the causes that might lead to abandoning the thought of awakening. And so there was 3 causes that Sapan mentioned, which is faint-heartedness, discouragement, and then fear of the faults of samsara.
作为中等的学处来说，我们讲过3个有可能会舍弃菩提心的因。第一个是由于恐惧心，第2个是由于懒惰，第3个是因为畏惧轮回过患的心而有可能会舍弃菩提心。
And so for the one in great detail, we already completed the first topic, which is about identifying the causes of attaining enlightenment. So the causes for the Bodhi, the thought of enlightenment to be born. So now we're going to speak of the second topic, which is the conditions for it to increase.
作为广义的学处来说，我们已经讲过了升起菩提心的因，我们现在就要讲增长菩提心的缘。
So we have this mention about cause and condition. So the cause has already been mentioned as being compassion. So cause we can understand, for example, as like a seed. So we can understand the thought of enlightenment to be like a tree or a flower. Anyone is okay. So let's just maybe think of it as a flower. So for a flower to grow, there needs to be a cause and condition, just like the thought of enlightenment. The cause for the flower would be the seed itself, which will eventually transform into the flower. And then the condition is something other than the seed, other than the cause itself. It is the function is sort of similar. It helps for the result to exist, to become existent. For example, the condition of the flower would be the sun rays, the warmth of the sun rays, and then the constant watering and the looking after the growth of the flower by the farmer or whoever it may be. So those are like the conditions for the flower to grow.
所以这个广义的学说，我们之前讲过了，升起菩提心的因，那升起菩提心的因就是是由大悲心而升起。那大悲心就像升起菩提心的一个种子一样，就好像我们举一个例子来说，比如说想象种一朵花或者是植一棵树，那作为比如说我们拿花作为一个例子来说的话，花要长成，首先要具有它自己的因和缘。那让一朵花要长成的话，它的因就是要有那颗种子，就好像我们要升起菩提心一样。有了这个种子的话，花就会长成。除了有了这个因以外，要长成一朵花的话，还需要有缘。这个缘和这个因的功能一样，都是为了让我们种好这朵花。那作为种这朵花来说，它的条件就是要有温度，要有阳光，要有农夫或者其他人去照顾它，然后要有水。
So when we speak of cause and result and condition and result, the cause is like the cause is like what the result is born from. So the cause itself will later transform into the result. So basically, cause is what the result is born from, what it comes from.
当我们思考因和果之间的关系以及缘和果之间的关系的话，因也就是或者倒过来说，果是因对于果来说的话是果是由什么地方而升起，是由因而决定的。
And when we speak of condition and result, condition is sort of like what, not exactly what the result is directly born from, but rather condition is what helps the result to be born.
我们在思维缘和果之间的关系的话，缘不是决定果从哪里升起，缘是决定有什么条件而帮助果升起。
But in a way, condition is sort of similar to cause. Both cause and condition help the result to be born. It's just one is kind of more directly, the other is helping, but not really exactly directly.
当我们思考因和缘之间的关系的话，因和缘是非常相似的，它们的相似点在于它们都帮助果升起，但是一个是直接的，就是因是直接的，而缘是间接的。
So to speak of this, the conditions that increase the aspiring thought of awakening, 7 conditions cause the aspiring thought of awakening to grow stronger. So to mention the conditions that will help the thought of awakening to grow, to increase, to become stronger, there are 7 conditions that will help it grow stronger.
那作为我们增长菩提心的缘的话，就有7个能够帮助我们菩提心增长的缘。
So the 7 are, the first of the 7 is serving a true spiritual friend as your teacher. The second is producing longing and trusting faith in the 3 jewels. Then you can go to the next slide. Third, knowing and avoiding deeds of the evil one, also known as Mara, as mentioned in the sutras. Fourth is supplicating all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions that the deeds of the evil one will not occur. Fifth is recognizing the benefits of the thought of awakening and the faults of cyclic existence in Nirvana. Sixth is recalling the excellent qualities of the Buddha and Bodhisattva, such as the magical powers and the super knowledges. Seventh is delighting in accomplishing the welfare of yourself and others. So you can just read this two once.
首先，就像我们屏幕上所显示的这个增长菩提心的7个缘，第一个就是依止亲近的圣知识，第二个是对三宝升起现求信迎接圣解性，第三个是了知并抛弃在经文中所说的魔业，第四个是亲近十方诸佛菩萨不要出现魔业，第五个是观修菩提心的利益和轮回涅槃的过患，第6个是意念诸佛菩萨的神变和神通等功德。第7个是为成就自他的一切利益而欢喜。
So we can go back to the previous slide. We will speak about the first condition.
那我们现在回到之前一页，我们现在讲增上菩提心的第一个缘。
So the first is serving a true spiritual friend as your teacher. So basically, this means that if you want the bodhisattva, the bodhicitta, the mind of enlightenment, a thought of awakening, to grow, to increase, one of the things that can help for that to happen is to rely on a spiritual teacher, a spiritual friend or spiritual teacher. And now, what does a spiritual friend or spiritual teacher mean? A spiritual friend or teacher is someone that not only teaches you what to do, how to practice, but also does practice themselves.
第一个增长菩提心的缘就是一指亲近的善知识。那我们想要升起菩提心，或者是对不起，我们想要让菩提心增上的话，我们首先就要依赖善知识那善知识是什么呢？善知识不只是他们能够教我们善法，教我们修行，他们自己也要有修行。
So a spiritual teacher would be someone who can teach the Dharma, but a true spiritual friend or teacher would be someone who not only tells you what to do, but also practices it themselves, who also takes responsibility for their own actions and does practice themselves, just as they teach you to do as well.
那真实的善知识不仅仅是教我们如何去修、如何去做，他们自己也有真实的修行。
So if we rely and associate with such a person and accept them as our spiritual teacher and friend, then that can help for the thought of awakening to increase.
那如果我们有一指亲近的善知识的话，就能够帮助我们的菩提心增长。
And we're also at the moment we're speaking about the aspiring thought of awakening. So there's two awakening: the aspiring, and then the aspiring and the application awakening. So among those two, it's the first one, which is the same as also known as wishing enlightenment. It's the thought of attaining enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings. So this we're speaking of the causes or the conditions for it to increase.
我们现在这些所讲的，能够帮我们菩提心增上的这些缘，都是指愿菩提心，也就是世俗菩提心的第一个愿菩提心，第二个是行菩提心。
For the second type of awakening, the application that would be taught a little later on. So it is not right now.
对于第二个增长菩提心的缘，就是对三宝升起现求心和圣洁心。我们现在先暂时不讲，以后会讲。
And the second condition for the aspiring thought of awakening to increase is producing longing and trusting faith in the three jewels. So basically, it's saying that we need to have faith in the three jewels, longing and trusting faith. So these are two different kinds of faith in the three jewels.
这个对于三宝升起的现求心以及圣洁心的话，是对于三宝的两种不同的信心。
So generally, there are three different kinds of faiths. There's clear faith, longing faith, and trusting faith. So here it is mentioned that we need longing and trusting faith for it to increase.
对于三宝的信心来说，有三种，一种是清净心，一种是悦乐心，一种是圣洁心。
So to speak of the first, the longing faith. Longing faith is basically longing faith in the three jewels means to attain their qualities. It is a longing to attain the qualities of the three jewels, that one takes refuge in the three jewels and has faith. So that is longing faith.
对于现求心来说，我们皈依三宝，就是为了想得到和三宝一样的功德而皈依三宝的信心。
For that, of course, we need to first understand the qualities of the three jewels. So we need to know what is the Buddha, what are the qualities of the Buddha, what makes the Buddha so special from other teachers. And then for the Dharma, we need to understand what is Dharma, how does it function, I guess you would say, and what are the benefits if you follow it, and what are the loss if you do not follow it. And then the So what are the pros and cons for that? And then for the Sangha, you need to understand what is the Sangha, how are they special, how are they superior practitioners compared to practitioners of other religions. Like, so if you have a good understanding of that, then the thought of attaining the qualities that the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha possess will naturally be born in your mind. And that is called longing faith in the three jewels.
对三宝升起现求心的话，我们就首先要了解三宝的功德。比如说，就佛宝来说，我们要知道为什么佛宝非常的特别。对法宝来说的话，我们要知道，法宝是怎么样运作。就是这个运作的意思，就是说我们要知道，依止法宝的话，它的好处是什么？依教奉行的好处是什么？如果没有依止法宝，如果没有根据法宝的要求来去修行的话，那坏处是什么？第三个对僧宝来说的话，我们就要知道，僧众就有其他的修行人的特别之处，或者是胜过其他修行人的地方在哪里？这些都了知了之后的话，我们自然也就会有想要获得和三宝同等的功德的现求心而皈依三宝。
And trusting faith in the three jewels is basically is to think or to understand that if I put all of my trust in the three jewels, I will not be fooled. I will not be deceived by them. They will certainly help me, and things will go well for sure. So that kind of trust in the three jewels, that is called trusting faith.
对于圣洁心来说的话，也就是说，我们对于三宝有绝对的信心，觉得我们一切依赖三宝的话，一切都会没有问题，而有这样的信心去皈依和相信三宝。
And then there's another type of faith, which is the clear faith. Clear faith is basically to understand that the three jewels are endowed with great qualities, and to be happy, to feel joy just by thinking about the qualities that the three jewels possess. So if you have that thought, just a natural joy when thinking of the qualities of the three jewels, then that is called clear faith.
对亲近心来说的话，就是我们知道三宝的功德，然后一想到三宝的功德，就自然而然的升起非常大的欢喜心。有了这样的欢喜心的话，也就是我们对三宝有亲近心。
So here among those three, Sapan has mentioned that longing and trusting faith are conditions that help for the aspiring thought of awakening to increase.
对于这三种对三宝的信心来说，蔡家芬智达在这里说，对于我们增长菩提心的缘来说，就是要对三宝升起现求心以及圣洁心。
And we can go to the next slide.
那可以看下一页。
Third is knowing and avoiding deeds of the evil one, which is Mara, as mentioned in the sutras. So in the different sutras, in the many different sutras, the Buddha has mentioned about the evil deeds of the evil one known as Mara. So Mara is basically the one that tried to create obstacles for the Buddha before he attained enlightenment, and he also creates obstacles for any practitioner who practices or follows in the path of the Dharma. So we need to understand how he works, how Mara works. So if we understand how he works, the tricks that he has to take you off the track of the Dharma, the practice of Dharma, then we will be ready when Mara sort of lays out his trap for us, because we already know what are the traps, so we can avoid them beforehand. So therefore we need to know how does Mara work, how does he work.
第三个，让我们增长菩提心的缘，就是了知抛弃在经文当中所说的魔业。魔业的话，就是指的是一种魔障，它在佛陀证得广位之前的话，给佛陀制造违愿，它也会给修行人在修行的道路上制造违愿。所以我们就首先要了解，这个魔障它是怎么样给修行人制造违愿的，也就是说，它给修行人准备了哪一些陷阱。这样我们都了解好了的话，就心里会有准备，就不会受这些 违愿而影响我们的修行。
There's so many different kinds of tricks of Mara, the evil one. So, for example, one that we can understand in this case is that can help. That may one of the tricks of Mara that may make us end up giving up the thought of awakening is for example, sometimes in certain situations, there are situations where the teacher and the disciple do not get along, and that may happen because of any kind of reasons. And some people who do not like either the teacher or the disciple, or do not like the connection, who are not happy with their connection, may say bad things behind each other's back, and sort of create, I don't know how to say, skikse, that's the word, something, dushing, we say in Tibetan, I don't know how to pronounce it in English. So anyway, just saying things behind each other's back, that this person is bad, the teacher, something sort of like how, if you might have read Angulimala's story, there's Angulimala's bad friends who made up lies about Angulimala to his teacher, and then that made the teacher lose trust in his own disciple Angulimala, and then made him, kill many people. So something like that, similar to that.
对这个魔杖，它如何给修行人制造违缘的话，就比如说举一个例子，它对于魔杖来说，对于魔鬼来说，它有许多不同的轨迹。举一个例子来说，就比如说它会让我们放弃我们的菩提心。比如说在一些情况里面的话，有可能弟子和上师之间的关系不和，比如说有些人不喜欢他们所皈依的上师或者皈依的善知识，又或者是说他们师徒之间的关系不好，互相在背后说坏话之类的等等，这样子的话都是一些违缘。比如说以前执马王的话，也就是听了别人的怂恿，以及做了很多谤法的事情，这样子的话，这样子的一种情况，也是魔障制造出了一些违缘，让我们舍弃我们的菩提心。
So if there's anybody who creates kind of sort of schism between the teacher and the disciple, then that is one of the deeds of Mala we can understand. And then also, like any kind of, even if there's not any person that's creating it, even if you're just thinking about it yourself, if some bad thoughts arise, bad kind of thoughts arise about your teacher, and you see bad qualities in your teacher, even if your teacher is good and doesn't have faults, and you start seeing faults, and that is also one of the deeds of Mala.
或者是说有一些其他的人在我们作为弟子和上师之间制造一些违愿，或者是制造一些不和的话，这些都是魔障的显现，或者是说我们自己心里升起了对善知识不好的想法，或者是说我们虽然上师没有任何的过患，但是自己在上师身上看到了许多的过患的话，这样子也是一种魔障的显现。
And then, of course, there's so many tricks. There's Mara's traps everywhere. Even such thoughts as laziness. Laziness, like you want to practice the Dharma, but then you feel a little lazy and put it off for later. That also could be understood as sort of the deed of Mara, the evil deeds of Mara. So laziness, or even it can be attachment or anger and ignorance. All of those are sort of Mara's traps for you to go off track from the practice of Dharma.
或者还有其他的一些魔障的轨迹的话，就比如说会让我们对修法感到特别的懒惰懈怠，比如说我们拖延我们的修行，或者是说其他的一些不好的一些五毒的话，就比如说我们的执着的心，我们比如说生气，或者是说有无明的心的话，这样子的话，这些等等的都是魔障的显现。
So we need to consult the sutras for that and read it and understand what are the different kinds of deeds of the evil one. And then once we understand that, we need to abandon them or avoid them. And if we can avoid them, then that helps to increase the thought of aspiring, thought of enlightenment.
所以说我们就要根据经文里面所说的，我们要去了解魔障它如何制造这些违愿，以及它会怎么样给我们修行制造违愿。这样子我们了解了的话，就会避免这一些魔业的显现，然后就会保护我们，不让我们的菩提心增上的方法来增上的角度来说受到破坏。
And then the fourth is supplicating all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions that the deeds of the evil one will not occur. So, of course, the deeds of the evil one are most likely to occur for any practitioner. So, first of all, as we mentioned earlier, we do need to understand them and then avoid them. But it can still, even if we understand them, it is still difficult to avoid certain deeds of created by Mara, certain sort of traps. So therefore, we need to rely on the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas for their help. So we need to supplicate, pray to all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions. So 10 directions, basically, that means all of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas that exist, because there are 10 directions. So there are not any Buddhas and Bodhisattvas that are outside of the 10 directions, because that kind of covers up the whole existence, the 10 directions. So we pray to all the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions, and we pray that for them to help in stopping, sort of like not letting the deeds of, not letting Mara trick us into going off track.
对，所以第四点来说的话，我们就是要祈请十方诸佛菩萨，不要出现魔业。对于魔障来说的话，对于修行人来说是一定会现前的。所以说我们要首先要在没有遇到魔障之前的话，我们要先了解这些魔障会是什么，这样子的话就能够避免。然后其次之外的话，我们还要祈祷十方的诸佛菩萨，祈祷三宝能够让我们不要出现这些魔障。因为魔障肯定会出现，所以我们要通过十方诸佛菩萨的加持。对于我们祈祷十方的诸佛菩萨的话，就包含了所有的诸佛菩萨，因为没有超过除了十方以外还有存在的佛菩萨，所以我们通过祈祷佛菩萨的话，就能够帮助阻碍这些魔障的现前。
And then the fifth is recognizing the benefits of the thought of awakening and the faults of cyclic existence in Nirvana. So that means that we need to think about, often think about the benefits of the thought of awakening. So that means we need to understand what are the benefits of the thought of awakening. And that will be mentioned. That will be mentioned later on, and especially that will be mentioned in the Bodhisattva by Shantideva, the way of the Bodhisattva. So the first chapter is dedicated to the benefits, mentioning the benefits of the thought of awakening. So later on, when we study that, we will know the benefits of the thought of awakening in great detail. So we need, basically, after we learn that, and also we probably already know some of the benefits of the thought of awakening, so of keeping it and what we will get after we attain enlightenment. So if we think about that, that helps to for the thought of awakening to increase.
第五个就是我们要观修菩提心的利益，和轮回过患，和轮回涅槃的过患。首先第一部分来讲的话，我们要经常思考菩提心的利益。那我们要思考菩提心的利益的话，就首先要知道菩提心的利益是什么。这些我们之后具体都会详细的讲。比如说之后我们会学习一些，寂天菩萨所造的入菩萨行论里面，这里面的第一品里面就讲了许许多多的菩提心的利益。所以我们大家有可能已经知道一部分的菩提心的利益，所以我们要经常观想思维菩提心的利益，这样就能够帮助我们的菩提心增上。
And then also we need to think about the faults of cyclic existence and Nirvana. So faults of cyclic existence and faults of Nirvana. So we think about the faults of cyclic existence. Many of you probably already understand that because in the preliminary practices there's that, along with the contemplation about the precious human life, impermanence, and cause and effect. So the fourth, there's the practice or contemplation about the faults of cyclic existence. So I do not need to speak about that here. So that is one thing that we need to think about, and that helps to increase the thought of awakening.
这里的第二部分来讲，就是我们也还要思考轮回以及涅槃的过患。对于轮回的过患来说的话，我们这里就不详细讲，因为在四次加行的修行里面的话，就除了人生难得、寿命无常、因果不虚以外，已经有了轮回过患的观修，所以大家应该非常的了解轮回有哪些过患。经常思维轮回的过患的话，也能够帮助我们的菩提心增上。
And then Nirvana also has faults. Nirvana can be understood as liberation, but this is not the liberation of the Buddha. This is the liberation of the Arahat, the practitioner of the Hinayana. So that has faults as well, because if you attain Nirvana, you're in a state of peace, and you rest in that state, and in that state you are not able to help sentient beings. It's just a state of kind of pure enjoyment for yourself, and you are not capable of helping sentient beings. So if you stay in that state, there's no liberating. You cannot help liberate sentient beings from samsara. So therefore that has faults. So you need to understand the faults of cyclic existence and nirvana.
第二部分来讲，我们要了知轮回，我们要了知涅槃的过患。这里的涅槃不是指佛的涅槃，而是指小乘阿罗汉的涅槃。那小乘阿罗汉呢，他们得到了阿罗汉的果位以后，他们就入了寂灭。那入了寂灭以后，他们就没有办法帮助众生，也就没有办法帮助众生解脱，他们只是自己停留在寂灭的状态当中享乐。那如果是这样子的话，就没有办法能够帮助一切众生获得解脱，获得果位。所以这样子的话，也是我们也要经常思维涅槃的过患。
And then the sixth is recalling the excellent qualities of the Buddha and Bodhisattvas, such as their magical powers and their super knowledges. So that basically means to remember the qualities of the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, how special they are, and then also think about the magical powers that they possess. The super knowledges basically means sort of like cleverness, how they understand the minds of all sentient beings, and that.
第六点的话，就是我们要经常意念佛菩萨的神变和神通，也就是说，我们要知道佛菩萨他们的特别之处在哪里，他们住的神通是什么。这里的神通主要就是指他心通，能够了知一切众生的心愿。
And then the seventh is delighting in accomplishing the welfare of yourself and others. So that is simple, easy to understand. You just basically need to be have a feeling of joy in doing deeds that will benefit both oneself and others.
第七点就是为成就自他的一切利益而欢喜，这个就比较简明易了，就是我们对于行持对自己以及对他人的利益，或者是对自他有利益的一切事业而升起欢喜心。
So it's like this, you understand that if you have the thought of awakening, then you will attain enlightenment eventually. And then once you attain enlightenment, then you are in the position of accomplishing the welfare of not just yourself, but where you have already accomplished the welfare of yourself, but you will accomplish the welfare of all other sentient beings. So you understand that enlightenment is the best state in accomplishing the welfare of yourself and others. And so if you think about that and find joy in that, then you will remember that the cause for attaining enlightenment is the thought of awakening. And so I must keep that and then because you're remembering that, it will increase. You hold on to it, and then which means you will not give up. And of course, you will naturally practice because you want to attain the qualities of enlightenment. So that the thought of awakening will increase in that way.
这里就是说，我们要经常思维我们行持利他的一切事业的话，就是说我们在有了菩提心之后的话，就能够帮助我们证悟，然后在我们证悟之后的话，自己和他人也就能够获得证悟所带来的利益。这样子的话，我们经常思维这些带来的利益的话，就会使我们不放弃菩提心。再更正一下，我们之前讲到的那一点是佛菩萨有的神通的这一点是指清净观，而不是他心通。
And so we can go to the next slide.
让我们看下一页。
Once you have thus cultivated these, you will see the faults of existence in the round of births and will wish to renounce your evil deeds. So there's many more mentioned. Basically, earlier it mentioned the conditions for attaining the thought of awakening, but it did not mention how do these conditions help for the thought of awakening. It just identified the conditions which help, but did not mention how do they help. So here it is going to mention how do each of those earlier mentioned conditions help in increasing the thought of awakening.
所以接下来就是说，我们这样子如此观修的话，就会因为了知轮回的过患升起忏悔心，因为了知涅槃的过患就会阻止这空性升起的贪着等等。之前我们讲到的7点都是只是说增长菩提心的语言是什么，但是都没有说这些怎么样能够具体的帮助我们的菩提心增长。而接下来的话就会说这些怎么样具体的帮助我们的菩提心增长。
So so it's mentioned here, once you have thus cultivated these, you will see the faults of existence in the rounds of births. You will wish to renounce your evil deeds. So earlier it mentioned that we need to recognize the faults of samsara and nirvana. So here it is mentioning so what happens if we recognize the faults of samsara or existence? What happens if we recognize the round of births, which is one of the faults of samsara? So if we recognize that, we will wish to renounce your evil deeds. So that means if we recognize the faults of samsara, the thought of confessing the misdeeds that you have accumulated in the past will naturally be born in your mind. Basically, it means that you will want to confess all of the bad deeds that you had done in the past. So that is the benefit. So if that happens, if you are able to confess, then you become free of the misdeeds. Earlier, you had the misdeeds following you, the sort of energy or the power of the misdeeds following you. But when you confess them, it becomes purified. You become free of the negative deeds. And when you become free, then that kind of clears the path for the thought of awakening to increase.
我们之前讲到要经常思维轮回里的过患，这里的话就是详细的讲到，如果我们经常的思维轮回的过患的话，就会因为经常想到自己以前所造的恶业，就会自然升起忏悔的心。因为我们现在的话都是随恶业追随，我们如果不经常观想轮回的过患的话，你就不会对自己以前所造过的恶业产生忏悔的心。那现在如果产生了忏悔心的话，就能够使我们摆脱就是能够使我们摆脱恶业，这样子的话就能够帮助我们增长我们的菩提心。
So basically, we need to understand the faults of samsara, such as the round of births, also such as the impermanence of life, the suffering that we have to experience if we are in samsara, and the nature of losing things because nothing is stable. Whether it be possessions, life, or anything in samsara, nothing is stable. So if we have to understand the unstable nature of all of the qualities of samsara, all that samsara has to offer. So if we think about that, then we will naturally feel that we need to we will remember that we had done a lot of bad deeds because we were influenced by these samsaric thoughts of such as chasing after things that we like, and then also because we hurt many people or sentient beings out of anger, hatred, and we made a lot of mistakes out of ignorance. So when we understand that, we will know that we had made a lot of mistakes. We have done a lot of wrong things while we were in samsara or in the past. So then we will naturally want to confess those to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas or the teacher, and wish to purify that. So that is a good thing. So that needs to happen, and that can happen. All of this can happen. This confessing and purifying the misdeeds can happen if we have a good understanding of what the faults of samsara are.
我们经常观想轮回里面的过患的话，我们就能够明白，在轮回里面生的痛苦，以及在轮回里面寿命的无常，以及在轮回里面受到的种种的痛苦，还有比如说轮回本身的无常性，我们拥有的一切的东西或者人和事物都会失去，或者是说，从其他角度里面来讲轮回的无常性等等。这样子的话，我们了知了轮回里面的一切痛苦的话，就能够知道我们以前在轮回当中也造了许许多多的恶业，现在我们都比如说经常追随我们喜欢的东西，或者是由于我们以前的无明所造的一些错误，或者所造的一些业，或者由于我们以前的贪着的心，以及对他人升起的嗔恨心等等，这些都是在轮回当中使我们积累了许多的恶业。这样子我们经常去观想的话，自然而然就会升起了忏悔的心，想清净我们自己的罪业，而只有这样子才能够使我们的菩提心增长。
So if we understand the faults of existence, then we will wish to purify, and which we will end up doing our misdeeds. We will purify our misdeeds. We will confess them, and then if we do that, the more we confess our misdeeds, the purer our mind becomes, the lighter it becomes, because our mind is kind of like very heavy with all of these misdeeds. And like, so the more we purify them, the lighter it becomes, the pure it becomes. So therefore, and when it becomes very pure, when our mind becomes very pure and has less all the less misdeeds following it, sort of like sort of as a shadow, then when it's pure, that kind of leaves a lot of space for many good qualities to be born. It creates a lot of new space for good qualities to emerge. And that also means that it becomes very possible for the thought of awakening to increase. So that is why the understanding the faults of existence is one of the conditions which helps for the thought of awakening to increase.
对于我们要经常了知或可观修轮回过患的另外一个好处，就是说我们在经常观修了的话，就好像我们前面讲的，就会了知我们做过许多的恶业，那这些恶业的话，就会使我们产生许多的痛苦等等。这样子，我们也会知道以前所造的恶业，都会想要非常的有强烈的心想要去忏悔这些恶业。我们把这些恶业都忏悔清净的话，我们越忏悔的虔诚，或者是我们越忏悔的多，我们的心也就会越来越清净，我们的意识就会越来越清净。我们现在都是我们有恶业像影子一样的追随着我们，但是如果说我们发起诚心的心，想去忏悔的话，这样子我们忏悔的越多，意识越清净。那意识越清净的话，就越有空间使善业增长。这样子的话，也就是能让我们的菩提心能够增长。
So now there's the question of how is the faults of Nirvana a condition for the thought of awakening to increase? So the answer is by seeing the faults of Nirvana, a mental attitude that thirsts excessively for emptiness will be averted. So usually those who attain Nirvana have a very strong thought of emptiness, but it is emptiness, the thought of emptiness pretty much alone. They don't really have much method or compassion. The compassion is not very strong in the practitioners who attain Nirvana. it is mostly emptiness. So for example, when somebody wishes to attain the arahathood, the focus is on emptiness, not compassion. And they don't really wish to save all sentient beings from suffering. It is rather to save themselves from suffering. So they want to be liberated, and that is all that really matters for them. So they understand that the meditation of emptiness is the cause for liberation, or nirvana, attaining nirvana. So then they practice on that, and then they attain the arahathood. So then they attain arahathood. So you can mention that first.
那现在我们就会想，那之前讲了轮回的过换是思考轮回的过换是能够帮助我们增长菩提心的缘。那为什么说思考涅槃的过换也是帮助我们增长菩提心的缘？因为一般来说，获得涅槃的果位的话，都是以空性的观念非常强烈的那些修行人。但他们空性的观念虽然强烈，但他们却没有悲心，他们只是单修一个空性。就比如说像阿罗汉的话，他们只是因为通过观修空性而证得阿罗汉的果位，那他们只是使自己解脱，他们没有能够使其他的众生解脱。由于他们由于得到解脱或者得到寂灭的果位，就是因为修空性场而得到的阿罗汉的果位，但是他们却因为没有悲心，所以只是自己获得解脱。
So for Mahayanas, we need to understand, as Mahayanas, we need to understand the faults of nirvana, the imperfections of nirvana. Same. Anyway, so if we understand that, we will know that if you attain nirvana, you cannot really help sentient beings. You cannot help in freeing sentient beings from samsara, because you're not capable of doing that once you attain nirvana. So therefore, we understand that you're not capable of doing that. So, and as Mahayanas, our mission is to help sentient beings, to free sentient beings from samsara. So then, when we understand the faults of nirvana, then we will naturally not thirst excessively for emptiness, the practice of emptiness. We will not be too attached to that practice, but we will practice that along with compassion for the sake of sentient beings. So when we do that and not focus too much on emptiness, then we will not attain nirvana.
作为大乘修行人的话，我们要了知涅槃的过患。因为涅槃的过患里面最主要的一点就是他们就是自己获得了寂灭的果位的话，但是就不能够帮助众生，因为只是自己入了寂灭。所以，因为大乘修行人的目标就是为了要帮助一切众生的解脱，所以说我们在了知了涅槃的过患的话，就不会对空性产生非常强烈的贪着，就不会让我们只是一心想要修空性而自己获得解脱。而是要在修行空性的基础上，也要修行，要修大悲心，这样子才能够帮助众生也能够解脱。
So excessively practicing emptiness without compassion is sort of like the opposite of bodhicitta, the thought of awakening. They are like opposites, because one thought does not really care about sentient beings, and the thought of awakening does care about sentient beings. So if we understand the faults of nirvana, then the thirst for excessively practicing emptiness will not occur. If we do not excessively practice emptiness, then we can continue with our practice with the thought of awakening, and it can continue to increase.
过度的关修空性的话，从一个角度来说，它就是菩提心的对立，因为它只是一心想要自己获得果位，对空性非常的贪着，他一点都不关心众生。但是对于菩提心来说的话，最主要的就是心系众生，就是希望能够帮助众生解脱。
And then mentions here, by seeing the great benefits of the thought of awakening for yourself and others, you will not despair of cyclic existence. So it means that if we understand that if we continue to remain in samsara, we can benefit many sentient beings. We can accomplish the welfare of both oneself and others. We will not feel sad, or we will not feel continuing to stay in cyclic existence. So this is for the practitioners of the Hinayana, they despair of cyclic existence, so they do not wish to live in samsara anymore. But for Mahayanas, the main point isn't to not live in samsara, it is mainly to not have the faults of samsara, but to continue to live in samsara to help sentient beings. So that is the main point.
对于一直停留在轮回里的众生来说的话，或者是说对修行人来说，轮回的话，对大乘佛教徒来说是能够帮助许多的众生，也就是说对大乘修行人来说，不会畏惧停留在轮回里。但是对于小乘的修行来说，他们对轮回就是有非常强烈的恐惧心，想要摆脱轮回。但是对于大乘修行人来说，在了知轮回的过患的话，但是不对轮回升起厌烦心，而是在明白了轮回的过患的话，反而更升起想要帮助众生摆脱轮回的痛苦。
So one can live in samsara without the faults of samsara. For example, there are so many Buddhas, emanations of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas living in samsara. The place that they live is in samsara, but if you look at them, they do not have the faults of samsara. They do not have the ignorance or the attachment or the anger, but they're still living in samsara, residing in samsara to help sentient beings. So that is something that we should be doing. We should try to attain.
一个人他可以继续住在轮回当中，而不具有轮回的种种过患。就比如说有许多在轮回当中的佛菩萨，他们也在轮回里，可是他们没有轮回里的过患。就比如说他们对众生没有嗔恨心，对众生没有贪着心，而只是一心想要利益众生。所以我们也可以思维，我们也想要像佛菩萨这样子，住在轮回里，可是没有轮回的种种过患。
If you despair in cyclic existence, that is not good. Earlier, it did mention that we should see the faults of samsara. We should understand the faults of samsara. But here it is saying that we should, if we understand the great benefits of the thought of awakening for yourself, you will not despair of cyclic existence. So this kind of sort of seems opposite. But actually, it is not.
这里所说的对轮回没有升起厌烦心的话，也就是说，我们虽然前面讲到了，观修轮回的过患的话，可以使我们的菩提心不退失。这里说的不对轮回升起厌烦心的话，就听起来是矛盾的。但是我们这里主要是说，对轮回没有升起厌烦心啊，甚至因为我们可以人住在轮回里，或者人停留在轮回里。可是不具有轮回的过患，而能够帮助一切众生。
And by seeing the excellent qualities of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, you will delight in the immediate ultimate fruits of spiritual practice. So if we understand the qualities of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, then we will we will find joy in the immediate and ultimate fruits of spiritual practice. So the immediate is like the Bodhisattva levels. Those are the immediate kind of fruits of spiritual practice. The ultimate fruit is in full enlightenment. So we will find joy in both of those.
之后一点是说，因为我们了知佛菩萨的功德，升起暂时和究竟之果报的欢喜心。这里就是说，我们当了知了佛菩萨的种种功德的话，就会对暂时的果位，就是菩萨的果位，以及彻证的佛果的果位的究竟的果报升起欢喜心。
This is, for example, like when businessmen or business people, men or women, understand the benefits of doing the business, then they will actually do the business. They will stop the work if they see that there's any gain in the work, if there's any benefits that they can attain from that. So likewise, when we think about the benefits of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, the benefits arising from keeping the thought of awakening, holding on to it, then we will continue to hold on to it and we will not give up and we will continue to practice, which means that it will increase and eventually we can attain the great results, both immediate and ultimate.
举个例子来说，比如说商人他在知道了一个商业的利益的话，他这样子就会想要去从商。同样的，我们想要，当我们知道了菩提心的功德的话，我们就会想要保持我们的菩提心。这样子的话，我们维持我们的菩提心的话，就能够获得暂时和究竟的果报。
And we can go to the next slide.
可以看下一页。
By devotedly supplicating the religious preceptor and the three jewels, the obscurating deeds of Mara, the evil one, will not occur. So the benefit by praying to the preceptor, the teacher, and the three jewels is that the obstacles created by Mara will not occur. Mara may try to create obstacles to one's Dharma practice, but because we have prayed to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, the three jewels, and the teacher, through their blessings, the obstacles will not have any effect upon you.
最后一点是说，我们因为对上师和三宝升起圣解心并祈请的缘故而远离魔业。这就是说，我们因为由于祈祷上师三宝的缘故，就不会受到魔障为我们制造的违缘，就能够远离一切魔障为我们所制造的一切违缘。
While the sustaining spiritual power of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas will quickly emerge in your life. So not just by when you pray to the Buddhas, the three jewels, and the teacher, not only will Mara will not be able to harm you, create obstacles for you, but also you receive the blessings of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas in your life.
我们祈祷上师三宝的话，不仅仅能够不受魔障为我们制造违缘的痛苦，而且我们也能够得到上师三宝的加持。
In this way, to removing hindering conditions and achieving conducive ones, the thought of awakening will increase. So earlier it mentioned what are the conditions that create obstacles for the thought of awakening to increase, and also what are the conditions that help it to increase. So after we understand that, we need to practice it. And so by removing the earlier mentioned obstacles and practicing the conditions, then the thought of awakening will increase. And so therefore we need to do that.
我们之前讲了，有哪一些是使我们菩提心退失的一些违缘。我们之后也讲了使我们菩提心增上的一些因缘。这样子的话，我们两个都要思维，这样就能够使我们远离我们菩提心退失的违缘，也使我们能够菩提心能够增上，通过经常修持，使我们菩提心增上的7种缘分。
There's a saying by the Sakya master known as Lowo Kenshin. So Lowo Kenshin said that if we have 4 practices, Mara will not be able to create obstacles for us.
萨迦派的有一位具德上师曾经说过，有几种是我们摆脱违缘的一些方法。
So among the 4 practices that Lowo Kenshin said, the first is compassion towards sentient beings. So if we have compassion towards sentient beings, then Mara will not be able to create obstacles for oneself.
其中的4个违缘里面的第一个就是对于众生的大悲心。如果对众生有悲心的话，这样子我们就不会受违缘的干扰，使我们菩提心退失。
The second is the second practice is by praying to the Buddhas. We will receive the blessings of the Buddha, and then by that, the Mara will not be able to harm one.
第二个就是我们祈祷菩萨，这样子我们祈祷菩萨的话，就能够得到菩萨的加持，就不会受魔障的伤害。
The third practice is to understand and meditate that all dharmas, all phenomena are the nature of emptiness. Ultimately, they are the nature of emptiness. So if we understand that all phenomena are the nature of emptiness, then that also Mara then cannot harm one, cannot cause obstacles for one's practice.
第三个就是我们理解以及观修所有的法，所有一切现象的本质是空性。这样子观修的话，我们也不会受魔障的伤害。
And then the fourth practice is to practice just as the Buddha taught. So the Buddha taught many practices that he introduced many paths to attaining enlightenment. So if we basically do whatever the Buddha told us to do, then Mara cannot harm one.
第四个就是我们修佛所讲的一切教言、一切教法，也就是说，我们根据佛所教导的一切内容如法的修行的话，也能够远离魔障对我们的加害。
So we can remember those four practices and try to apply them as much as possible.
所以我们要记得这四个方法，然后我们要在一切的可能情况下都要去运用这些方法。
We can go to the next slide.
那翻下一页。
The methods for keeping the aspiring thought of awakening from declining. So this is the third topic. So we've completed the cause of thought of awakening, the conditions for its increase, and now this is the third one. Methods for keeping the aspiring thought of awakening from declining.
我们现在讲菩提心不退失的方法，这里就是愿菩提心广义的学处里面的第三个部分。我们之前讲了升起菩提心的因，增上菩提心的缘，现在讲菩提心不退失的方法。
The Mahayana thought of awakening will decline if lacking devotion to the teacher and three jewels, you cannot bear to anger and jealousy, to see the excellent attainments of others. So this means that the thought of awakening will decline. Decline basically doesn't exactly mean not being endowed anymore. It doesn't mean giving up exactly, but it means becoming poor, slowly becoming poor and poor. So earlier increase means getting better and better. So this means getting poor and poor. So if we lack devotion to the three jewels and the teacher, so if we do not have much devotion to the three jewels and teacher, that is one. And also if we cannot bear the excellent attainments of others, so if other people are doing good, if other practitioners are doing better, they're doing very good, whether it be to their practice or to their living situations, whether it be food or wealth or whatever it be, possessions. If they're doing very good, and then we feel jealousy towards them, or we may feel anger towards them, then that will become a cause for the decline of the thought of awakening.
这里我们说的菩提心会退失的话，不是说彻底放弃菩提心，而是我们的菩提心会减弱的意思。那第一点来说的话，就是对上师三宝没有圣洁性，会使我们的菩提心减弱。第二个就是说我们没有办法忍受他人的功德，或者是他人的心智的一些善业。这里就是说，不管是他人的修行也好，还是说还是其他人的一些生活的条件等等，我们没办法忍受而感到嫉妒心，或者是对他人产生嗔恨心，这样子的话都会使我们的菩提心减弱。
And then also, if you do not hold the welfare of others to be important and exert yourself only for your own happiness, it will decline. So if you do not consider helping others to be a very important thing to do and just focus on your own progress alone or your own happiness, if you start doing that, if you start thinking that way, then the thought of awakening that you may have right now will slowly decline. It will get poor and poor and poor. And then eventually you may end up giving it up. So therefore that is dangerous. So these are causes for the thought of awakening to decline. So we need to avoid these.
还有一点就是说，我们如果产生了不觉得帮助他人非常重要的心，而只是专注于自己的修行，帮助自己的话，也会使我们的菩提心渐渐的减弱，渐渐的退失。所以这一些都是有可能说菩提心退失的一些条件。
You can go to the next slide.
来看下一页。
And if you do not know the excellent qualities of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and are not energetic in seeking such qualities for yourself, it will, maybe we can go before that. I'll go back to the previous slide. I think there must be something missing here in the English translation. I'm not sure. But what we need to add here, there seems to be something missing. So it is by not exerting oneself in the great methods, but is sort of satisfied by the introduction to the nature of mind alone. So if one does not exert oneself in the great methods, such as the practices of the generosity, the moral conduct, the patience, and the like, 6 perfections, etc. So if one does not exert in that, but then one sort of is introduced to the nature of one's mind and thinks that if one just practices that alone, it is enough, then if you think in that way, then the thought of awakening can decline.
这里法王子说，好像这里还缺失了一点，就是说我们如果，不精进的投入菩萨所行持的6度的方法，比如说精进、禅定、布施、忍辱等等的话，而只是专注于自己的修行，只是专注于自己，对于空性等等的修行的话，那也是会使我们的菩提心退失。
So I think there are many Buddhist practitioners probably that are like that. They are introduced to the nature of mind and they just practice that alone, and then they don't do a lot of bodhisattva practices, such as what they should be doing as a bodhisattva, such as doing charity or the patience or diligence in their practices, or the actual kind of going back and forth in helping sentient beings. They kind of sort of ignore that and just think that if you know the nature of your mind, you are already enlightened, and that is enough. You're already facing enlightenment by that alone. So that is not enough, and it is not. It does not help. If it is sort of like the wrong thing to do, it is the wrong path. It's not recommended here, and not recommended by some Sakipandita to do. So as a bodhisattva, you need to focus on the many requirements or duties of the bodhisattva, which is the practices of the application bodhicitta. There's 2 aspiring applications. So the second includes all of the generosity and the 6 perfections and the like are included in the second type of bodhicitta. So we need to do those as bodhisattvas.
这里就是我们如果有一些修行人，他们只是过度的专注于自己修自己的观心禅，觉得自己证悟了的话就很好，就不用再行其他的话，这些就是会使我们的菩提心退失。比如说我们作为修行人来说，特别是大乘修行人的话，要像菩萨一样的要行持菩萨的责任。比如说我们要行6度，不管是忍辱还是精进还是布施等等，这些都要去行持，而不只是专注于自己的观心禅，或者是关注于自己内心的证悟等等的一些觉受。所以大家班智达这里就不提倡只是自己去修行，而是要行持菩萨的责任。那这一些6度的话，也就是包含在之后的行菩提心里面，我们之后会具体的说。
Basically, the message here is that bodhisattvas should not think that understanding or meditating on the emptiness or the empty nature of the mind is sufficient. You have to do the practices of the six perfections and the like.
所以这里重点就是说，作为菩萨来说的话，不应该只是专注于观修自己的本性是空性等等，而是应该要去精进的修持六度，行菩提心里面要所行的一切菩萨的修行。
So anyway, if you just do that alone and not the practices, that can cause for it to decline, the Bodhisattva's mind, thought of awakening to decline.
所以说，我们如果只是关注自己的，比如说空性禅，或者是关注自己的观心禅，但是没有去努力的行持广大的方便的方法，没有去行六度的话，也会使我们的菩提心退失。
And if you do not know the excellent qualities of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and are not energetic in seeking such qualities for yourself, it will decline. So if you do not know the qualities, if you do not know what are the special qualities of the Buddha, what are the special qualities of Dharma and the Sangha, and not just not knowing, but then you don't know, and you also don't make the effort to know. So first of all, you do not know the qualities that they possess. And on top of that, you don't make the effort in understanding the qualities that they possess. If you're like that, then, and you have the thought of awakening, then that thought of awakening will not increase, but will decline.
还有一点就是，我们不知道佛菩萨的功德，而且自己也不努力去追求这样子的功德的话，也会使菩提心退失。这里就是说，我们不光光是自己不知道佛菩萨的功德，而且我们也没有主动的去想要了解佛菩萨的功德的话，这样子的也会使呢菩提心退失。
Therefore, as the antidote to the above, cultivate devotion, enthusiastic joy, and so forth in various suitable ways. So therefore, since those are all faults, such as not understanding the qualities of the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, not practicing generosity in the great methods, not considering the welfare of sentient beings to be important, and not having great faith in the three jewels and the like, since those are all faults, we need to rely on the antidotes to all of those faults, to the above mentioned. And the antidotes to all of those is to cultivate devotion in the three jewels, cultivate the enthusiastic joy in practicing, and so forth.
所以这里我们就总结来说，就是我们如果不了解佛菩萨的功德，或者是说不努力的去行持布施的，或者是不去利益众生，只一心就追求自己的解脱，或者对三宝没有圣解性等等的话，这些都是使我们菩提心会退失的，或者是会减弱的一些条件。所以我们要对治这一些过患的话，就是要经常的去观修，观修三宝的功德，对三宝圣解性，以及通过对三宝的欢喜心来对治这一些有可能是我们菩提心退失的一些条件。
And so forth. So forth means basically like etc. So in there we can understand there to be the studying of the qualities of the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, and studying the faults of the above, and studying the benefits of relying on the antidote and the like, which we are doing right now. We are studying this text, so that is studying.
这里还说到一些我们除了观修，对于三宝升起圣解心以及欢喜心的功德，还有一些其他的一些我们对治的方法的话，就是我们通过学习，比如说我们通过学习三宝的功德，以及通过学习，有哪一些条件会使我们菩提心退失的一些过患等等的话，这些都是对治的方法。就比如说我们现在的学习，也是一种能够帮助我们菩提心不退失的一个条件。
So this is very important for us studying. It's especially considered very important in the Sakya tradition because there are many traditions, but some focus very much on the studying alone. Some focus on practice, almost not really much studying, but going straight to the practice, which of course practice is good, but then without prior studying, it's difficult for there to be understanding if there's no prior studying. So without studying, it's difficult to have the right understanding. And if there's not the right understanding, which I mean the right understanding on how to practice, then even if you may practice and go straight to the practices without studying, it may work out for you a little bit to some extent, but then eventually you will face obstacles, you'll face difficulties, and then you'll get confused. You do not know what to do because you do not prepare for all of this and prepare for all of the obstacles. You do not know the antidotes to them, how to fight the obstacles, how to get rid of them. So then there are many difficulties.
这里就是非常重要的一点，就是讲到了文字以及讲到了学习的重要性，特别是萨迦派的传承特别重视学习，特别重视文思。有些教派的话会比较重视就比较重视修行，而不是那么的重视文思。但是修行也非常的重要，但是如果没有之前的学习，没有之前的文思的话，就没有正解。这里的正解主要是指对修法的正解。我们虽然也可以直接去修，但是如果说没有正解的话，就有些时候会遇到违缘，就不知道怎么样去对治，因为没有对治的方法以及我们在修行当中遇到的种种的问题的话，也都没有一个准备。所以说在真正的修持之前的话，首先要去学习，要有正解。
So therefore, like for Sakyapas, we always have to go to anybody in the tradition, almost anyone will have to go to the colleges, the schools or college where Buddhist philosophy is taught. And we study all of the different subjects, such as valid cognition, middle way, Abhidharma, the Vinaya, which is the rule or conduct of the monastics. And then there's also the perfection of wisdom, and then of course the Vajrayana and the like. So we study it all in complete. So we have the right understanding before we practice, and then after we study all that, we then know how to practice. And then when we do the actual practice, and then the faults or obstacles arise, then we know how to deal with them.
特别对于萨迦派来说的话，首先要经过非常系统的文字学习，比如说要学习因果、学习中观、学习律仪学习智慧度、金刚乘等等的话，这样子的话，全部都学完了之后，就会知道如果在修行当中碰到违缘的话，如何去对治。
So therefore, studying is very, very important. Without studying and just meditating, without having done studying prior to that, it is sort of like a blind person or a person with no limbs trying to climb a cliff, trying to climb a hill. It is very difficult for there to be much progress in meditation alone.
所以说没有修学的，没有学习，直接去修行的话，就好像一个没有助缘想要去登山的一个人一样。
So when we study, we first, of course, need to listen to the Dharma from the teacher. And listening itself is very important. You can't really study without just by reading the books and not associating with the spiritual teacher. You need to associate with the spiritual teacher. There's first the lineage, because the lineage coming down from the Buddha or from great enlightened masters, the information passed on from one master comes down to the present time to certain spiritual masters. So we need to associate with them to receive the transmission of the teachings and the blessings of the lineage. And then we need to study on top of that. We need to first listen. There's the process of practicing the Buddha Dharmas to listen, to contemplate, and then to meditate. We don't go to meditation straight away, because that is just sort of foolish to go straight there. So we need to listen first, listen to the Dharma teachings. And after we listen to the Dharma teachings, then we need to contemplate upon the teachings, which is we remember what we heard during the teachings, and then we need to think about them and examine to see if it is right or wrong. We need to examine that. So we contemplate upon it. And then at the end of the contemplation, we will come to a conclusion that it is right. This is right. This is right because of this reason and this and that and so on. And then once we come to that conclusion, then we need to meditate upon that conclusion that we had come to, because we need to, because it's very stable now. You know what to meditate. If you go straight to meditation without hearing and contemplation, it is not stable, because you have no really basis to, you have no basis or nothing really to meditate upon.
所以说，在修行之前要去学习的话，就非常的重要。而且的话，学习的话要有具德的上师为我们传法。上师的话也是，除了上师以外，还要有传承，也就是从佛陀传下来的一代一代上师的传承的这些法脉。这些法脉不仅仅是我们所学习的法的一个传承，而且它也有非常殊胜的加持。所以说我们在修行之前首先要去听闻佛法。听闻了以后要去思维，最后才去观修。如果说直接去修，没有去听闻的话，是非常愚昧的行为。我们首先要去听佛法，听了之后去思维，思维我们之前所听的法义是否是正确，然后我们之后自己得到一个结果，自己并且心里知道是因为哪一些条件才使我们心里所确定的这些结果是正确的。这样子的话，我们在修行的时候就去反复的思维我们所获得的这个结果。如果说我们没有通过文思修的话，直接去修行，这样子的话，我们的修行就是非常的不稳固。
So therefore, we can understand that we should understand that people who go straight to meditating without any hearing or reading the books, without contemplating them, but just go straight to sitting in a posture and then closing their eyes and sort of sit still and just do a meditation will not lead them very far.
所以我们要理解，如果没有学习、没有文思，直接去修行的话，那些人他们虽然摆禅定的姿势，闭上眼等等的话，但是这一些没有通过学习的直接的去修行，不会使他们的修持能够得到多远的一个境界。
Because meditation in Buddhism, according to the Buddha Dharma, is to meditate upon a meaning, something that you have come to a conclusion to having done contemplating, to having done investigations upon that meaning. So in order to do meditation, you need to the thing you need to meditate is on something that you have come to a conclusion after having done all the investigation or contemplations. And before that contemplations or investigations, you need to have done the hearing from the teacher. So that is the process. First it comes hearing, then contemplation, then meditation.
对佛教来说的话，佛教的修行就是我们所修的禅修，都是在思维都是要反复的思维我们之前所听闻的一切佛法心里得到的一个果。这里的意思就是说，我们在修行的时候是在反复的思维我们之前所听闻，以及我们分析之后自己心里确信的一个果是什么。所以就是说，我们只有在听闻、在修行之后，才能够心里有正解，才有我们观修的内容。
Now, many people may consider or say such things as meditation is, studying, of course, is mainly for the monastics to do, or those who have so much time, who are living in monasteries or colleges, who are devoting their life solely to the practice of Dharma. We do not have such time. We have a lot of work, and life is also short. So we should just practice on the main points, which is sort of true in a way. But in the end, what we as lay people have to practice is going to be the topics mentioned in this book, for example, such as the taking refuge, the thought of awakening, and then there's going to be, of course, generosity, and the many that are going to be mentioned, yet to be mentioned. So we need to practice those. We cannot really be a Buddhist if we don't practice those, we can't be a Mahayana practitioner if we don't practice those. So we do need to practice those.
虽然有些人来说，学习佛法只是给出家人，给那些有许多时间的出家人以及僧众所做的事情，但是比如说我们现在有工作，我们生活非常的繁琐，没有那么多的时间，去思维，从某种角度来说，这个确实是对的，但是对于在家人来说，我们确实是要去修持佛教里面所讲的，比如说皈依啊、菩提心以及布施等等，这些都要去修。但是也不能说我们只是，没有通过修行而直接去修佛教里面讲的这些修法。
So because we have to practice those and we will practice those, there are going to be so many obstacles arising. And if we do not study about the topic very well earlier prior to practicing it, then we will not know how to face it. And then there's so many practices, the different types of, for example, we mentioned the thought of awakening, there's true aspiring and application. If we do not know how both of those function, the causes for generating them, the conditions for it to increase, and how to keep it from declining, how to keep it safe from declining and the like. If we do not know all of those, then we will very much likely end up, our practice will very much likely end up declining. We will very much likely end up not creating the causes and conditions because we do not know them. And just the practice will not go very smoothly.
因为我们要修行的话，就会在修行的过程当中会遇到种种的违缘。如果我们之前没有思维的话，就会不知道在修行当中碰到这些违缘要怎么样处理。比如说我们想要升起，嗯，或者换个角度来说，我们比如说要升起菩提心，要行持愿菩提心和行菩提心的话，如果我们不知道方法，也就是说不知道我们升起菩提心的因是什么，升起菩提心的缘是什么，使我们会退失菩提心的哪些，有可能是我们退失菩提心的条件是哪一些的话，我们在修行当中就没有面对这些的方法，就会使我们的修行退失，也就是会让我们没有办法去面对这些遇到的违缘。
We can simply just look at all the failed practitioners, the people who tried but failed, who may have practiced Buddhism earlier but then converted to another faith, and are people who once practiced Buddhism and later started criticizing the Buddhist practices as being deceiving or not effective and the like. We just need to look at them. And because if you look at them, we can understand that all of that happened because they did not study how all of the practices work. They did not listen to the teachings. They did not study it in depth. They did not know how the practice, all of those function. That's why when the obstacles arose, they lost. They lost to Mara. And Mara won. And so therefore, we can understand that those are the faults if you just go straight to practice without studying. So if we have studying, then we have understanding. If we have understanding, then if we have understanding, then our mind becomes stable. When the faults or obstacles arise, we will not be moved. Even if we are about to move, our mind is about to become moved, about to become influenced by the obstacles or harmed. We will be able to bring in the antidotes immediately because we know them or we will remember them. And then we can fight and we can win over the obstacles created by Mara. So therefore studying is very important.
我们可以通过看失败的修行人的一些例子来明白这个道理。失败的修行人就是指他们虽然一开始是信仰佛教、修行佛教，但他们之后却转变了他们的信仰，放弃了佛教，以及甚至会对佛教产生种种的邪见，去批评佛教没有效等等。如果我们看他们的例子的话，就会知道在修行之前没有思维、没有文思的过患是什么。因为他们不知道如何去修行，也不知道升起违愿的时候如何去对峙，如何去面对，所以他们在碰到违愿的话，就 就使魔障打败了他们，使魔障战胜了他们，他们自己却放弃了自己的修行。所以说我们如果有了修行的话，我们有了学习的话，就会使我们的心内产生正见。有了正见的话，我们的思维以及我们的见解就会非常的稳固。所以在魔障现前的话，在我们自己被魔障现前的缘故，自己在动摇之前的话，就会想起我们所学习的这些对治的方法，然后我们去如法的去运用这些对治的方法的话，就不会使违缘扰乱我们的心，不会使我们放弃我们的修行，也就会让我们战胜这些魔业。
So of course, we do not need to study just as the monks and nuns do. We do not have time to do that, of course. And there's also certain things that we cannot study and we do not really need to study, such as the Vinaya, the monastic code, and the like. But the essential things we should study, the essential information that we need to know, we should study whatever text, whether it be a long textbook or a short textbooks. If they provide the essential information, the essential practices that we as lay people must practice or should be practicing, then we should study those. We should find the time to study those.
虽然我们不用像出家的僧众那样子去学习那么多的经典，因为我们没有像他们那样有那么多的时间，比如说去学史、学习律仪等等的话，等等。但是我们非常重要的一点就是，不管怎么样，我们都要去学习一些经典，不管那些经典是长还是短，只要是包含我们修行的精华的话，这些我们都要尽可能的去学习。
One should just remind oneself at times if one feels that the studying is not important, that one should remind oneself that studying the text in the way we are currently doing is sort of like the cause for one to become a successful spiritual practitioner in the future. So just one needs to remind oneself in that way, sort of encourage oneself.
当我们觉得学习不重要的时候，我们就要提醒我们自己，我们的学习，就比如说我们现在这样子的学习，都是以后能够让我们成为一个成功修行人的因。
So this concludes the training in the aspiration to awakening. So with this, we have concluded, we finished speaking on the training in the aspiration to awakening. So there's two. So the first one is completed. So we spoke of the first one in short detail, medium detail, and great detail. So that is complete. So 2 weeks later, we will speak about the training in the application of awakening. And for that, there's also a short, medium, and great detail, but it is not, those are not as long as the previous, as three details of the aspiration of awakening. So those are just several pages, and then we will be finished with the chapter on the thought of awakening. And then after that, it will be the generosity chapter.
以上我们就讲完了愿菩提心的所有的学处。接下来2周之后的话，我们就会讲行菩提心的学处。作为行菩提心的学处的话，也是分为3种，就像愿菩提心一样，有简要、中等以及广义的学处。但不同的是，行菩提心的学处不会像愿菩提心那样那么的长。之后我们就会讲这一些，行菩提讲完了以后的话，我们就把升起菩提心的整个这一品就全部都说完了，然后我们之后就会讲布施度。
So we will now go to the 37 practices.
那么现在讲佛子行37颂。
Namada label hala chaca lo keto chudre yonsu suba le ze tembo kuye ribonjin. Yebe jinzo le tulo rabdo ze chanju semye jombe we garajin. Dulja linshe wena nambra gyo taye shende kuge manala shin. Tuje chimbe gaden keba dang keba pudo jungwe yonde nyen. Nije begala chenwa le zenbe chenre se wang musumo na washin. Kare chudre gyase jeba da rabdo lule tome shabade. Dewe kela tangwe tebe le rabdo gune tse mendo chen. Pulwe gewa medo jungwa de gungyang gyase chela ne balai sho. In bad company, the three poisons grow stronger. Listening, reflection, and meditation decline, and loving kindness and compassion vanish. To avoid unsuitable friends is the practice of a bodhisattva. So this verse is about bad friends or bad company. Basically, friends that make the three poisons or the three defilements, which is ignorance, anger, and attachment stronger. So this verse is teaching us that as bodhisattvas, one of the things that bodhisattvas should do is to avoid friends that make the three poisons grow stronger.
这个偈颂就是说，交往恶人增参毒，失坏文思修事业，令成无有慈悲者，远离恶友佛子行。这里就是说，恶友就是使我们的三毒增上的一些人，就比如说是三毒具体就是指我们的无明、贪心以及嗔恨心。所以作为菩萨、作为佛子的话，就是我们要远离是我们这样子，是我们三毒增上的这样的恶友。
So there are many friends that we will have in our life, and each of them some of them may make our attachment grow stronger, some of them will make our anger go stronger, some ignorance. So, for example, we can speak of one for the first example. First of the three poisons, there is anger. So we can think of the story of Angulimala for that.
我们生活当中会有交到许许多多的朋友，但有一些朋友的话，就会使我们的贪心增长，有一些是我们的嗔心增长，有一些是我们的无明增长。当我们思维嗔恨心的时候，我们可以就当我们思维哪些朋友会使我们嗔恨心增长的时候，我们就可以思维指慢王的那个公案。
So Angulimala was a person who lived in India during the time of the Buddha. When he was a child, his name was known as Ahimsa, which probably means non-violence, I think. Basically, he did not harm. He was someone who was very gentle in the beginning as a child. He would not harm sentient beings. Later on in his teenage years, he went to a college, a university, probably in Pakistan, somewhere around there, known as Taxila University. And there he met his teacher, and he became his teacher's favorite student. Then, and their relationship was, a teacher-student relationship was going very well, but Angulimala's, Ahimsa's classmates became very jealous of him. And so they sort of created a schism between the teacher and student, and made a lie that Ahimsa had contact with the teacher's wife. And so that angered the teacher, and the teacher expelled Ahimsa from the university and told him to kill many sentient beings, kill many humans, and that if he did that, he will be rewarded. The teacher would grant upon him a special blessing or reward. And Angulimala did that. He killed about probably, I think, 1,000. And then people, and he came back to the teacher and informed him that he had completed the task. But the teacher said, "Where's your proof that you had killed such a number of people? Come back with proof this time, cutting off a finger from each of your victims and creating a necklace and wearing it around your neck, and then that will convince me that you killed 1,000 people." And so then Angulimala went again and killed almost 1,000 people. around 999 people. So anyway, he became a murderer, a criminal due to that. And that all started because he had bad friends, he had bad company, bad classmates, and they were jealous, and they created a schism between the teacher and student. And due to that, Angulimala's anger sort of grew stronger. Among the three poisons, for him, it was anger mainly. It was his anger or hatred grew stronger, and he killed so many people. So the source of all that cause was the bad company that he had.
这个指曼王的公案就是说，以前指曼王在佛陀住世的时候，他的小的时候因为非常的聪明，又被称为无脑。后来他的父亲送往他一个婆罗门的一个法师那里去接受教育，也就是现在的巴基斯坦的地方。因为他非常的智慧过人，他的同学对他升起了非常强烈的嫉妒心，也就是设计了一个计谋，就是使他的老师认为他和他的师母，使让他的老师觉得他的师母爱上了指曼王，因此的话，这个老师就非常的生气，就跟指曼王说就叫指曼王去杀1000个人，来忏悔他的罪过。是指曼王去杀了1000个人之后，他告诉老师他已经完成了这个任务，但老师问他你的证明在哪里？就让他每杀一个人，就把他所杀的那个人的手指串成一个项链套在他的脖子上，来证明他杀了这些人。然后当他快要杀第999个人的时候，就他彻底就变成了一个杀人狂。这里这个公案就是说他在这里就是受同学的陷害之后，他的嗔恨心就不停的增上，然后因为嗔恨心他就造了这么多的恶业。
And then there are some friends, bad company, that make your attachment grow stronger. For that, there's an example. In India, there was once, we call this the story of Zawepumo in Tibetan. So I do not know how to say that. I do not know the Sanskrit word for that. And so not the English either. But anyway, there was a family, a father and mother, and so there was a husband and wife, and they did not have a child, a son, for a long time. So they sort of did just sort of to have a son. They decided to name the child, to be born child, with a girl's name. And then a son was finally born when they named the child with a girl's name before the child was born. So the child was born as a boy, but had a girl's name. The father, the husband or the father of the child, was a captain who would travel across the oceans and retrieve treasures from the ocean, from the depths of the oceans. So that was the job of the father. And but the father died when the child was very young.
另外一个公案就是说，就是说我们了解，恶有如何是我们的贪心所增长的。这里这个公案房子说他不是很确定这个主人公的名字，但是这个公案来讲的话，就是以前有一对夫妻，那他们没有小孩，然后他们在这个孩子出生之前为他们的孩子取了一个女孩的名字，但最后生出来的是一个儿子。这对夫妻就是这个孩子的爸爸，他是一位船长，他的工作主要是航海，然后去获得珠宝。
And so the father died when the child was very young, but the mother hid the father's profession to the child because she worried that if the child knew one day that his father's job was to go in sailing in ships and retrieving treasures, the child would also follow in his father's footsteps, and the child could also die one day, just like the father did. So she hid his profession from the child, and she instead sort of told him that your father's profession was to sell coins, in the business of creating coins, I believe. So the child believed that, and for a long time the child was in that business of creating coins. But then one day his friends said, this isn't the job that your father did. The job of your father was to go sailing and as a captain and retrieve treasures from the ocean. So when he heard that, then he gave up his current coin business job, and he made preparations to go to retrieve treasures from the ocean.
由于这个父亲他的工作是船长，是去大海里获得珠宝。他由于行持这个，他因为是做这个行业，他很早就过世了。母亲因为非常担心自己的儿子也会从事父亲所从事的工作，就和自己的孩子隐瞒了他爸爸所做的这个工作的本质，就告诉他爸爸以前是制造钱币谋生，所以这个儿子长大之后也追随父亲的脚步去在制造钱币的这个行业里面生存。但是之后有一天，这个孩子的朋友告诉他，他父亲以前并不是从事这个行业，他父亲以前是一位船长，而工作主要是航海，去海里获得珠宝。这个儿子在知道了这一点之后，就放弃了他之前制造钱币的这个工作，去像父亲一样去航海。
And when he made preparations, his mother found out that he had figured out his father's profession. So she tried to stop him, and he did not listen. And he made plans to leave on the very early next morning. So for the whole night, she slept right in front of the door of their home, so she could sort of block his way from leaving the house. But that did not stop him, and in the early morning he left, and when she tried to stop him, he kicked her in the head with his foot, and he stormed off and went to retrieve treasures from the ocean.
于是这个孩子他在准备要去航海的时候，被母亲发现了，母亲就想极力的阻止他做这一点，但他却没有听从母亲的意愿。第二天早上他准备就要去航海出行，母亲为了阻止他儿子出去航海，就在前一天晚上睡在了家门的门口，就为了阻止他不要去远行。但是第二天早上到来的时候，也没能够阻止这个小孩去航海，他还是一意孤行，就想要坚持去航海，并且他为了不让他的母亲阻碍他，他用脚踢了他母亲的头，这样子就为了不让母亲阻碍他去航海。
And then he went on, and when he was sailing, then there was a great storm. Because of that, the ship got wrecked, and pretty much all of the sailors that were in there died except for him, and he ended up surviving, but had to roam around, kind of like ended up in the ocean for a long time, holding onto a plank, and for many days. And even after that, after he got onto the land, he saw many strange sights and many unfavorable things to see. So basically he went through many sufferings and difficulties due to that. And that all started because his friends told him that of his father's true profession, while they could have hid it from him. So in that case, like because his friends told him his father's true profession, strong attachment grew to the treasures that he could possibly find in the ocean's depth, in the depths of the ocean. So attachment grew for him.
在他航海的时候的第一天就遇到了非常强烈的暴风雨，因为这个暴风雨，这个船只就翻了，几乎所有的 最后所有的成员都死了，只有他存活了。但虽然他存活了，但他还是只是抱着一根木棍在海上漂流了许多天，才到了陆地上。到了陆地上以后的话，也看到了种种诡异的现象，也在因此遭受了许多的痛苦。这一切都是因为他的朋友没有向他保密他父亲的职业，而告诉了他父亲以前是一个航海家。这样就使他升起了贪心，才会让他想要去航海，和他父亲一样从事一样的行业。
I believe this person, this what we call Zawepumo in Tibetan anyway, this child who went to who ended up going to the sea and having his ship ship getting destroyed and having to face many difficulties. This was probably one of the past lives of the Buddha. The Buddha has many past lives. If you look at the Jataka tales, the past lives of the Buddha, there's 500 pure lives and 500 impure lives. So this was probably one of the 500 impure lives, the lives in which the Buddha in his past life accumulated bad deeds.
法王子说这个公案就是这个小孩子的话，法王子认为不是认为，法王子说这个孩子也是，佛陀过去无数当中的转世当中的一世。在本身传当中就有提到佛陀在因地的时候的许多世的故事。在佛陀在因地的时候有500世是净身，也就是说是转为清净的，或者是转为三圣区是转为三圣区，并有500世是不净身，也就是转为恶趣，或者是说并不是那么或者是说违缘重重的一世。在这个故事当中，是属于不净身的那一世。
And then we have bad company, which makes the ignorance grow. So for that, there's a story of Milarepa of how his mother sent him to a sorcerer to study sorcery so they could take revenge upon Milarepa's uncle and aunt and family for mistreating them. And Milarepa went to the his sorcerer teacher, and informed him that he wished to learn sorcery from him. So please teach me that. And the teacher did not immediately teach Milarepa because he wanted to see if Milarepa was really telling the truth, if his situation back at home was really that bad. So he first sent the sorcerer teacher one of his other disciples who could run very fast, who had fast feet or who could run very fast, to quickly go to Milarepa's home and check around, see if Milarepa's really telling the truth about his situation back at home. And he sent that student, and the student went and he saw the situation and came back and told the teacher that yes, Milarepa's story is true, and that his uncle and aunt really are evil and had mistreated them, and their Milarepa's mother's situation is very poor there, and this and that, so on and so forth. And due to that, then the teacher finally taught sorcery to Milarepa, and after Milarepa mastered the sorcery, he used the sorcery, practiced it, and upon the uncle and aunt, and killed many of their family members. So that all happened because that bad company, one of the students who could run very fast, informed the teacher that Milarepa's story was true. If he had just gone there and instead not have informed the teacher that the situation was just like Milarepa had said, then Milarepa would not have learned the sorcery because the teacher wouldn't have taught him that. And if that didn't happen, then Milarepa wouldn't have killed many of his family members. So one of the sources for that is the bad company that Milarepa had during that time.
是我们无名所增长的恶有的公案，我们就可以想弥勒日巴尊者的公案。弥勒日巴尊者因为有他妈妈的教唆， 想要去报复欺负他的叔叔和阿姨，去追求黑法的行持。当时米勒日巴尊者去向一位老师去学习黑法的时候，当时这个老师他没有直接教米勒日巴尊者这个黑法，而是叫他一个跑得非常快的一个弟子去米勒日巴尊者的家里看米勒日巴尊者跟他说的这个情况是否属实。当时这个弟子去看了以后，回来就和这个老师说，米勒日巴尊者所说的这个事实，就是这个报复的这个计划确实是属实。于是，这个老师就教了米勒日巴尊者的黑法，教了以后，米勒日巴尊者就用了这个黑法去杀了他的叔叔阿姨，以及杀了他的许许多多的家人。嗯，如果说这个弟子他当时没有和这个老师说这个情况属实，这样子的话就不会是米勒日巴尊者去学这个黑法，也不会让他伤了这么多的人，造那么多的恶业。
So therefore, due to that, Milarepa's ignorance grew. He could not see what was right and wrong. He could not make that difference, and he killed many of his family members. So the bad company is the cause for that.
因此，米勒日巴尊者的无名就因此而增上。他在由于无名增上了之后的话，他就看不清什么是对和错，也就因此而去行使这个黑法，去杀了这么多的人。
So as it says, in bad company, the three poisons grow stronger. Listening, reflection, and meditation decline. So if you have bad company, if you're in bad company, not only do the three poisons grow stronger, but because of that, listening, reflection, and meditation decline. Because when you have the three poisons and it grows strong, then that sort of contaminates your mind or infects your mind. Your mind cannot see things clearly, cannot think clearly, because it's just full of anger or attachment or ignorance. And because of that, you will not be able to do listening, reflection, meditation, which is exactly what I mentioned earlier. So, and for that, you need to have a clear mind to do those three practices. But you cannot do that if the three poisons are strong in your mind. So therefore, those three practices will decline.
第二点就是，如果我们交往了恶友的话，就会使我们失坏闻思修的事业。就是说，我们如果，在三毒不停的在我们的心相续里面增长的话，就会染污我们的心。这样子的话，就会使我们的思维不清晰，或者是我们心相续也不清晰。这样子的话，思维被三毒所占有的话，就没有空间去闻思修行。所以就是说，如果使恶友的影响的话，就会使我们的三毒会增上，也就会影响我们的闻思修的事业。
And due to that, and not just that, but and loving kindness and compassion vanish. So if the three poisons grow strong, not only will listening, reflection, meditation decline, but also whatever loving kindness and compassion you have will also vanish. It will slowly be gone. You will lose it because when you have strong attachment to someone or strong anger or ignorance, basically you'll end up taking sides. You will favor one from the other. And loving kindness and compassion is supposed to be directed towards all sentient beings. So that won't be possible if the three poisons are strong. So therefore, those two will vanish. So those are the faults. If you have the three poisons, the listening, reflection, meditation, which is essential for a Buddhist practitioner to do, will decline. And the good qualities of loving kindness and compassion will vanish. So therefore, Bodhisattvas should avoid unsuitable friends. In this case, of course, unsuitable friends means friends that make the three poisons in one's mind grow stronger.
不只是说我们的文思修会是因为恶友而削弱我们因为恶友的话影响我们的慈悲心也会因此而消失。因为我们有了三毒的我们的心相去受到染污的话，我们就会使我们偏袒我们自己所爱的人。那也就是说，我们的慈悲心就不是对一切众生都升起平等的慈悲心，而只是说我们对于我们自己对所爱的人有偏袒的慈悲心。所以这样总结来说的话，因为恶友的影响，就会使我们失坏我们的文思修的事业，也会使我们的慈悲心消失。所以这里就是说，这就是恶友使我们 形象序当中的三毒所增上所导致的2个过患。
Okay.
好，我们今天讲到这里。
大家有问题的话，可以在对话框里面打问题。If anyone have question, you can just type in your question at the text box.
So there's a question that wonders if, out of interest for one to save some time, is there any faults if one were to listen to some Dharma teachings while one is eating, or one is making food, or one is working or walking?
Yes, of course. Of course, many people will probably listen to music in most cases, but if you can listen to that, that's even better. If you can listen to Dharma teachings, the Dharma teachings, the more you listen to it, the better it is for yourself.
And sorry, just to clarify, because the question wonders, is there any faults if one were to listen to Dharma teachings, even if one is eating or one is making food, and that's also okay?
Yes, of course, that is okay.
OK，这个问题就是说，平时为了节约时间，在做饭、吃饭的时候，或者是上班，听高听大德的开示，有没有什么过患？因为有些时候要走动、说话或者干一些其他的事情，法王子说这个当然是很好的，因为我们平时如果不再做这些的话，有可能就会听音乐等等，所以我们听了佛法的话，当然是很好的。然后后来又补充问了一下，因为担心在听佛法的时候会吃饭等等有过患，但法王子说这些不会有问题，因为都是听闻佛法，所以不会有什么过患。
But then, of course, it's very good, but it may be difficult because you need to focus on, if you're cooking, you need to focus on the cooking. And if you're listening to the Dharma teachings, you need to focus on that. And it may be difficult to focus on both at the same time. So if you are able to focus on both, then that's great. But if you cannot, then maybe you should just listen to it at a different time, even though it is good if you can listen to it.
那法王子说，我们在做其他事情的时候听闻佛法当然是很好的，但是有可能我们没办法去专注。比如说我们在做饭的时候去听的话，就有可能没办法专注我们所做的饭或者所听的法。当然，如果我们能够专注的话，当然是很好。There's a question that wonders, so that person thought compassion is also emptiness. Please clarify with me that if meditate on emptiness is part of compassion, but is it a defect of nirvana?
Of course, all dharmas, all phenomena, all dharmas are things, are the nature of emptiness. Its ultimate nature is emptiness. There's nothing that is not emptiness. Anything that relatively exists in this world is emptiness. And for compassion, of course, the practice itself is, if you look at it, the nature of it is emptiness, but there are different kinds of practices of compassion. There's compassion directed towards sentient beings. There's compassion directed towards dharmas, and then there's compassion. So there's the last compassion is the how would you say, Mikpa? The compassion without concepts. It's basically the compassion without concepts. So that third compassion is sort of like the compassion that you mix with emptiness. But other than that, the other two compassions, for example, like the first compassion, which is directed towards sentient beings, it is not directly, the way you meditate on it is not the emptiness meditation. Itself may be emptiness, but you're not thinking about it as emptiness. So that does not make it emptiness meditation.
这里的问题就是说，对于空性的禅定来说，是不是也是修悲心的一部分？法王子说，当然所有的法就是或者是一切现象都是空性的，所有 观大而生的一切法都是本质都是空性的，所以大悲心的本质也是空性的。当然，这个悲心呢是对于是有不同种类的悲心，比如说是有对友情，或者是对法，或者是最后一个就是无缘悲心。但是我们当对友情修悲心的时候，这个悲心的思维就不是抱有空性的思维。
Later on, around close to the end of this book, it will show how Bodhisattvas should practice compassion and emptiness together. So it will show, for an example, that compassion should be like the bow and emptiness should be like the arrow, or compassion and emptiness should be like the two wings. So it will be mentioned later. There's several chapters after the sixth perfection. Actually, around the end of the six perfections, it'll be mentioned. I think maybe on the meditative concentration, the perfection of the meditative concentration, or the perfection of the wisdom. One of those chapters, it will mention that.
这样子说，之后我们又会讲到菩萨应该如何，就是空性和智悲双运一起修行。之后我们这个摩尼密显明论里面也会具体的讲到，比如说有些例子来讲的话，空性和悲心就好像弓和箭的关系一样，悲心就像空性就像剑一样，或者是说悲心和空性就像双翼一样。我们之后再讲到六度品的最后，就是讲到禅定和智慧品的时候，就会讲到这一点，就是讲菩萨如何，悲心和空性双运的修行。
So basically, we show how to practice those together at the same time.
也就是说，菩萨如何把空性和悲心一起修行。
But generally, all practices are the nature of emptiness. So but that doesn't mean that if you practice a Christian practice or a Hindu practice, that doesn't mean you're practicing the meditation of emptiness, or it doesn't work like that.
房子补充说，当然，所有的修行都是修一切的法的本质是空性。当然，这个处理一切修行不是说，比如说像基督教或者是说印度教的这些修持，只是说是佛法的修持。There's a question that wonders if you can please debrief briefly about the causes for one to have depression for people who are teenagers, say 10 years old or 20 years old. If one has had depression, what are the causes, and how can Buddhism be the antidote towards depression?
Well, for teenagers, of course, there may be many different causes for depression. One is just it's the nature as they're going through changes. They see things differently, they understand things differently. And for this, there could be bullies. Many face bullies, and then there's many problems in the world that need to be solved, such as racial things and all these unsolved problems. And just because they're not unsolved, the people are always depressed and not happy about it. And then there could be bad relations between their parents or friends, or the studies could not be going well, or the studies are too difficult. There's so many reasons for that. So those could be the causes of depression.
这个问题是说10几或者是20几岁的年轻人，就是抑郁症得抑郁症的原因以及佛法如何对治。房子说，对年轻人来说，得抑郁症的话，有许多不同的因，比如说有可能就是因为年轻人就是在经历许多的转变观念的转变等等，包括在世俗当中，就是整个社会当中有许多固有的问题，比如说种族的问题等等，或者是说年轻人可能家人和朋友的关系不好，也有可能是或得抑郁症的原因，或者是学业太难等等，都有可能是得抑郁症的原因。
And to, of course, get rid of that depression, you need to deal with the situation. You need to do something about it. But in a spiritual perspective, we can just think about the verse which Shantideva taught in his Way of the Bodhisattva, which goes as, if there's something you can do about it, why worry? If you cannot do anything about it, why worry? So we just need to think about that. If there's something that if you can fix it in the end, then you do not need to worry because it can be fixed. You can do something about it. If, however many efforts you do, try to fix the situation or do something about it, and still it won't be fixed, or you know it won't be fixed, then why worry? Because it's just, it naturally cannot, nothing can be done about it. So in any cases, you do not need to worry about it.
法王子说，这个对治抑郁症的方法的话，佛法里面有许许多多的方法。举一个入菩萨几个祭天菩萨所造的入菩萨行论里面那个寄颂的说法，就是说，如果一件事情我们能够有方法去解决的话，那就不用担心；如果一件事情我们不能去解决的话，那也不用担心。所以就是说，不管怎么样，我们都不用去担心，因为如果我们能够解决的话，那我们就可以把它解决，就不用去担心。但是如果我们不能去改变这个结果，或者不能解决的话，那我们也不用去担心，因为担心了也没有用。
So it goes as, again, if there's something you can do about it, why be unhappy? If there's nothing you can do about it, what use will there be if you be unhappy about it?
这里再补充说，就是说，如果我们就是刚才那个寄颂里面，就是说，如果我们有一件事情能够解决的话，那为什么我们要不开心？因为它可以解决，或者是说，如果一件事情它不能解决的话，那我们为什么要担心？因为担心也没有用。So there's a question that wonders, we have mentioned briefly that the more one confess, the less karmic obstacles one will have, and what are some of the practices of confession that you recommend for beginner practitioners?
Oh, that will be mentioned in the next class, in the 2 weeks later. So in the same chapter, when we speak of the application part of awakening in short, medium, and great detail, and I think in the great detail, the last one, just before the chapter ends, what we can do to purify our misdeeds.
这个问题就是说，刚才提到忏悔越多，业越清净，有哪一些对于初学者建议的法门？法王子说，这个我们在下一节课，讲到行菩提心的学处里面会讲到，行菩提心的学处我们会讲简要、中等以及广义的学处，在最后广义的学处那一部分里面，我们就会讲到，有哪些推荐的忏悔的法门。I think that's all the questions that we have for today.
Lama yedam kanja tsola gyabsu chiu, rangsam donsa chige gula gyabsu che wo namga da nyabe semche tamche. Lama sangye rinpo che la gyabsu chiu, sangye che da genye lama gyabsu chiu. Lama yedam kanja tsola gyabsu chiu, rangsam donsa chige gula gyabsu che wo namga da nyambe simche tamche lama sangye rinpo che la gyabsu chiu, sangye che da genye namla gyabsu chiu. Lama yedam kanja tsola gyabsu chiu, rasim donsala chige gula gyabsu chiu. Oma nyebe me ho, 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 Omane Beme, 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 Omane Beme. Mani beme, 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 mani beme. Mani beme, 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 mani beme. Mani beme, Nedan loburu gele gülbayi dendan nedan cümbü tsevas Since yemin deve nenam güncide kapso çumara makroç Çedra şeme çibe seca şin gece cila lüsem çaçe Soço nege dunga çinye bacide kapso çumara makroç Çeda şince kanang çiba nege mingzam deve çaçe Jia Bada Tabe Rimso Lüce Kıda Ne Para Bakyoç Nebe Geri Tonca Gecu Dan Lobro Ye Zho Sumya Chuchu Shigya Zashe Nela Soba Ye Lüce Kıda Sevra Bakyoç Sem Deva Malü Choche Be Chukşi Chube Dongla Çinye Malü Şişe Danto Denpa Dan Serin Neme Degi Denpaş Lama Kunjo Sumge Tuje Dan Kanje Chugyon Some Nitu Nenje Lua Mebe Dendog Mo Malam Dabse Jubara Sho Lama Yedam Sange Chansem So Kyavila Ramjam Gyatse Tsoje Seje Dongwe Yange Sode Na Yela Mebe Dende Nyujo Kerangage Wangbe Yalme Da Gune Kangwa Duja Gawe Sanama Bado Chemba La Yere Dajen Jida Shabna Sowa Yiri Chido Degan Gume Karakasang Chidu Gyurwa Watsaras Vije Jiden Kamge Lolwa Le Deme Shuba Dine Chiyez Tena Lare Dagara Zang Mala Kenze Nibe Vekara Zeson Seje Dembe Gume Gyungge Ba Kendo Shinuro Larya Nyurchen Zagye Lama Namge Chilam Dan Nanjo Ringa Jube Dendo Dembe Ngada Baden Sagya Lusan Gele Choju Kyavgyuru Chi Baden Zabe Lama Rinpoche Tage Chiguro Deme Densho Gajen Chimbe Gune Jeson Guzon Tuge Ngwejo Zado So Chime Mishe Son Ve Guru Kana Chime Tse La Mo Jende Ma Chime Tse La Wa Ve Tso Namagi Chime Tse Yeng Zhu Za Du So Re Son Be Me Tu Ge La Lama Ne Ke Ze Nu Tu Ran So Ye Moro Che Sa Ten Lun Do Be Ca Ge Ze Ne Du Ja Lin Xie Gen Do Da Den So Ha Wang Yu Zhu La Rin Kun Ge Dong Zhou Gun Ga Zi Te Chen Do Nga Lama Ben De Ban Du Ba La Ben Chen Le Jen San Be Wang Ge Gya Bo Shab Den So Nam Da Jem Den Sere Ge Sa She La De Sama Guan Be Re Chen Du Lo Ma Ze Che Ze Zom Da Je Den Ba Ri Me Ge Gya Cho Re Wang Le Bo Den Shu So Gya Wang Nye Ba Je Ze Kong Ma Nye Gya Den Ji Du Nye Gu Tse Ma She Gya Ve Lam Sa Sa Mo Lo She Na Gya Wa Chi She Den Ze sha de so ben zo kya se du ge da xie ba de sa ge chu se bara ne cho zam len ze be gen du chen xie san son do ro je da de so de me la ma cho sum tu je da ye dam de song ga zu tu do da che nie sa mo gru men de be tu che da la so be de ju gru chi
Che me wang bo ya wa zen ba me che ge ne de le do lo da de ma che da de ye bo le nam ba la ya che me la cho so ye ze ba zo wai zhen zhuo song wai jie tong ri li dian zhuo guen gan jie bi nam jie jie to me kan duo jie li du le jie yi si song wan ju le jie bo xiao dian shu de da la nie ne su wa da bi ti gu zi de jian tu za ma ra pi le pi xie dan zhu bi zi zi sa yan bi ri lu zi jian bi wi zha xi yu
nama de ye tam je se pa ye to ne ye be da na pam che ne ge ga na che ba lo chu pa ye se be so ne do wa la sho Chamba Bavu Chedai Kemba Dangundo Sambo Te Ya Te Shende Te Dai Gunge Jesu Dalo Jenge Wande Da Tam Jerado Tu sumo shebe gawa tamche ge ngo wai kan la cho do ma ba de ta ge be za wa de ke kya san bo che che ra do ngo wa ra ge cha choi kyo ve kyo ban choi kyo bai ke zhu gya tse yong so ka ve ne ka re che de re den ba sa zi ba sa kya ba ye den ba ke gyur chi kanchen peki devara doji denpa den sake chuse bayuji chube dongyu ginche mepa dangi gyanche de namka nyambala shom. Okay, thank you.